Exceptional Radio. Exceptional Radio.
Good evening. It's March. It doesn't feel like March. It feels like May or June or something. There's so much stuff happening on the news. It's like I didn't think that the news cycle could speed up more than it had, but somehow they found a way.
Well, and it does feel like the news cycle has sped up, but it's also discussion of things that haven't happened and are just like, this got discussed. And so that's where I'm like, people talking about things or proposing things has become news. So like the idea that people were proposing taking over Greenland as if it was real, like that should have never happened, and that should have never been part of the news cycle.
Congressional representatives discuss lunch options.
Right. That's what's happening at the core. And even down to the executive orders, they get rolled back almost immediately. It's just a matter of like, if they don't get rolled back, it's just because there's other things being rolled back in advance of that, and it's in a queue of things to be rolled back. So I do feel like part of the news cycle speeding up is to like manipulate people into submission and like make them feel like it's hopeless, even though nothing actually has really changed. And what's funny to me is like everybody's acting like planes just started falling out of the sky when Trump took over. And I'm like, man, are memories really that short? Like
planes fall out of the sky all the time.
I mean, it's just not even that. Boeing was fucking murdering people to hide the fact that their planes were not good and that they were like the fleet that was out is falling apart and that plane airline companies that are tasked with maintenance can't keep up with the poor quality of Boeing builds. And so it was like that shit happened under Biden when they were just started fucking murdering whistleblowers. And people were just I don't they didn't really care then, which is like it tracks that they forgot that Boeing was like murdering people. But now that it's like weird to care when Trump takes over. Cause like I remember anytime I had to fly, I would like check the planes beforehand where I'm like, there's nothing you can really do about it once the airline has made their choice. But there was a point where I'm like, oh, if I can avoid Boeing planes, I'm going to avoid Boeing planes. And I'm like, that shit was happening under Biden. So it's weird to see people want to like give up for 4 years as if they were super politically active in the first place. But it's like people just want to like be depressed for 4 years where I'm like, your life isn't even really that impacted. And I don't like, yeah, he fucking sucks, but so did Biden. Biden was like murdering Palestinian children daily. And like nobody on the fucking Democrat side cared when it was Biden. And they don't care now that it's Trump. But like watching people's concerns and then what people are like fearful about when their lives don't really change much between presidents regard like whether it's Biden or Trump, once you're in a certain class, it's like your life doesn't really change that much. And it's like, I'm only saying that because I've been part of that class my entire life. So I've like had the luxury to be relatively unaffected by public policy at the presidential level, mainly because the president doesn't really decide policy at the local level. And even at the federal level, it's like it's Congress more than the president. Even with all these executive orders, it's like our federal policy is like Congress. It's not Trump. And like even down to all the um fucking deportations and shit like that was happening under Biden. If people are really concerned about deportations, they should have been concerned about that shit this entire time. They never should have stopped being concerned about it.
I'm pretty sure that the United States has been deporting people for a long time. Like,
it didn't stop under Obama either. It's not like Obama was like, I'm going to stop deporting fucking people that we don't like.
Let's see. How many people did they deport during Carter's administration?
Way more. Oh, Carter. I was going to say, you don't want to know how many people they deported under Biden or Obama because then it shatters the illusion that there's any sort of disparity between the actions of these two parties. It's only the words. Like,
I mean, Carter ordered the deportation of students, of Iranian students who were here illegally. So there was tensions with Iran back then, in the late 70s.
Not an excuse, though.
No,
those tensions were our fault.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, you can point at the tension, but then you have to be like, well, who tried to coup who? Who tried to coup who?
So,
America tried to coup Iran. Okay, that
explains.
explains.
I do have one gripe because I've been affected by these policies recently. They cut funding for NOAA and National Weather Service, and so that means that there's going to be some weather substations and contractors who aren't submitting data now. But it turns out that there's like well over a dozen private satellite companies that are all monitoring weather, and their data is actually freely available. And so I'm pretty sure whatever gaps emerge have already been filled. There's some of this stuff is like, I'm not sure what portions of it are like the sky is falling and which portions of it are like, hey, this is really fucking real here, guys. Because like I said, man, the news cycle is just a barrage at this point.
The issue is like Trump and fucking the Twitter guy are like,
oh, Lord Edgelord.
Yeah, I feel like nobody should ever use his name ever again, and just call him whatever you want. Just don't use his actual name.
Yeah, I like Lord Edgelord.
Yeah, Lord, whatever, Lord, fucking wannabe,
Lord Apartheid.
So whatever, it don't matter. But he's like doing this thing
Field Marshal of incels.
Trump is allowing him to talk like he's gonna go in and like treat the government like a business, but he's not gonna be able to do that. What's so funny to me is like the idea that military industrial has been. This is where it's like, I think it's funny to watch in terms of like, yeah, there are people we know that have been affected in terms of like the veterans were the first damn near, which they're always treated like shit. So it's like, I'm definitely not justifying it, but it's like for all of the shit that Republicans talk about, oh, we're patriots and we love America, blah, blah, blah. They don't give a fuck about the veterans. So like veterans always get treated like shit. And like the veterans are basically one of the first directly affected groups that aren't immigrants by this administration, in a way that like it's gonna get overturned, or like they're gonna lose a lawsuit somewhere. All of the shit that they're doing is so illegal that the backlash and the lawsuits against it are going to be like 7 to 10 times worse than what they did, but affecting them even down to like, you remember when they launched the meme coins and shit, and they're like, oh, we're gonna Trump and dump the market.
Oh yeah, and then a bunch of fake meme coins popped up and nobody knew which coins to buy.
Yeah, well, that like that made the market like lose faith in him, and then he tried to do this we're gonna launch a crypto reserve announcement and do another Trump and dump. Well, it didn't fucking work because now that Bitcoin has an ETF, like fucking the actual market, like the traditional orthodox markets are now intertwined. And so when the stock markets don't have faith in him, it doesn't matter what if he tried to do a Trump and dump or not, the crypto markets still crash. So it's like all of the accelerated hype that they're using to keep the news cycles moving, it like without any actual substance to it, there's only so much they can do before that snaps back the other way like a fucking rubber band, down to like nobody's even talking about AI because that shit's all about to collapse. All that AI shit. I mean,
XRP just passed 90% likelihood of endorsing ETF, so it's being approved. So XRP is also now bound to the market.
I mean, it's all bound to the
Cardano,
market.
Solana,
all all of it always has
Oh,
been.
I know, but like
Like,
Cardano and Solana are also getting ETF approval. Like all of the coins that he mentioned have.
and guess what? Now they're all diluting. They're
Yeah.
all gonna have their shit diluted, and so
Didn't we already go through this like, like 6 years
yes,
ago and also like 10 years ago and also like
yes,
13 years ago?
yes, yes. It's these people have no other tricks up their sleeve, which is why it's so funny to watch. And like China is just sitting there eating it up,
Oh my
like
god. Do
fucking.
these people forget that China had like all of the ASICs machines running like 24/7, chewing up all of the
Hmm.
world's electricity before everyone decided, oh, we
Hmm.
want electric cars, no more bitcoins.
Yep, yep. They all forgot about that part. And the fact that
Uh,
Russia was like, yeah, guess what? We don't want to do that mining part because we can just infiltrate and just steal
we
it
can
all
just
from.
steal your wallets.
Yeah. So they're like, yeah, we'll look like we banned cryptocurrency, but we're all like stealing American cryptocurrency and then cashing it out in the process. Like,
Oh, like all those hardware wallets that were floating around for months and months. Yeah, back up your key with on our hardware wallet. It's safe. It only connects to the internet to validate authenticity. Suckers.
man, it was so stupid to me how much people wanted to like get into cryptocurrency or blockchain for security and then find the easy way to remember their or to like make it so they don't have to remember this shit. I'm just gonna keep it on this hardware. Well, now this hardware thing is the like single point of failure, and so I keep seeing stories about that guy who wants to like
Dig up the
he lost
entire.
the
He lost
he
his hard
lost that
drive.
hard. Yeah, man, that guy needs to just die
He
at this
offered
point.
half of the wallet value to like the local
Just fucking give
municipality
it
so
up,
they would
man.
bust out the excavators and start digging up
Just give it up.
their trash dump. They're like a municipal dump site, which is like, literally dozens of soccer fields worth of space full of trash.
Nah, that shit. Like the idea that dude is so irrational. He's so fucking out of his mind. The idea that he would do that to recover. Let's say the hard drive was there and it did have the fucking money on it. The idea that you would like put the capital into recovering that.
It might not even be recoverable.
Exactly. Exactly.
Like the amount of time
Exactly.
that has passed, like there's no guarantee that any of the seals on that drive would have remained
Yeah.
intact.
No way. No way.
Just the amount of water and oxygen it was exposed to is plenty of
There's
time for
no
any of the connectors
guarantee
to
that it
fail.
would like power on or like
Even if
take
they
power.
disassembled it and put the platters into like, one of those platter readers that data recovery centers have, even then there's no guarantee that it would fire up and read. Although I've read really crazy like stories, data recovery stories where people like pull their laptop that fell into the Amazon, and they pull the drives and they take it to one of those facilities, and they're able to resurrect like 60% of the data, and they were lucky to get their vacation photos back or some stupid shit. Like, yeah, that's a great use of that kind of technology. Yeah, let's recover some idiot who took their laptop on a raft. Let's
But that's
recover their fucking vacation photos.
that dude reemerging is another example of like what I mean in terms of like the news cycle just spinning shit out of control because that's not a real story. Like nothing happened. Same dude who lost his fucking hard drive still hasn't found his hard drive. Keeps proposing dumbass shit to try to find his hard drive that he's never gonna find. That's not news. So like the idea that they keep reporting that every few years on a slow news day or whatever, um, that's I I am getting to the point where I'm looking at all the information and all the information that's being created, and I'm like, there has to be a saturation point where we like got to start like curating, getting rid of um useless crap information and like mining the shit that's out there that people haven't actually mined before, because it's like we're producing information and data too fast for anybody to make sense of it, even AI. And that's why it's like something has to change as to how we see information. Like, I have a friend who's proposing the notion of like information being another form or another state of reality, where, or it's like fucking like if if gravity is a force, information itself is a force. And that's where I think he's not the only one to put that out there or propose that notion. And like um even the Vedic texts have some allusion to that being like how information works. But especially Americans don't treat information like it's sacred at all. And I think that's where the romanticism of Chinese culture from a lot of Americans comes from, like what it appears to be how they treat information integrity. And it's the same shit with Egyptians in terms of like unbroken information chains are revered by the West, but they don't even really know why. And I think that's why it's like they want to romanticize writing above oratory history, because the oldest history is oratory. Um, so it's like that's why they don't recognize the fucking Aboriginal history as like a real history, even though there's been a bunch of shit that's been confirmed. So this is one of those things that I've had to reconcile in terms of learning how different cultures keep historical record versus why the West wants to romanticize written record as if it's somehow immutable. And once it gets written, or that writing it is proof that the information was correct in the first place. Like the the onus of importance has been in the wrong part in Western culture, in terms of like it's not whether it was recorded, it's whether it's true. The truth is what's important, and it doesn't matter if it's fucking written down if it's true. And so this discrepancy is something I've like I struggle with at first, but once I like realized that um the way other cultures treat truth versus um and further, there's this notion of like some things are natural forces and they can only be discovered versus something that can be invented. And so like in that same regard, things that have been lost can be rediscovered. And so that's where it's it's also important to understand when something is a construction. Like any sort of framing of a historical event is always going to be limited to the person or whoever records it. It's always going to be limited to that frame, but it's more so than establishing where the frames begin and end and where they overlap and where you can construct a larger picture by weaving frames together. And I think this is where religions serve to be these like philosophical frameworks that if you only get one, then you don't really have an accurate or fully supported view of how humans are supposed to interact with reality. And I think on the other hand, it's like interacting with reality is something that we try to capture in other media to like represent the abstract feeling of the things that we're experiencing when we're interacting with reality. But then the like, whether it's a photograph or whether it's a journal or whether it's a poem or whether it's like a video, any attempt to sort of capture that emotion does not we're never able to duplicate it, but it does not prevent us from then having other unique feelings or unique experiences or emotions from that in the future. And so I think that's where.
So I've got this like
Sorry, go ahead.
32-inch by 18-inch, 3/4 inch thick piece of plywood that I've been using for the last probably 20 something years. It started life as a pedal board, and it still is a pedal board, but it's undergone numerous fine tunings over the last couple decades. And I was just thinking about this thing because I recently did some fine tuning, and like I would have needed an extra set of arms to try and capture that. But the reality is, if I had an extra set of arms, I would have used those things to make it easier to make those minor modifications. I think the thrill is in the doing sometimes, and it's not the kind of thing that there's this quality to doing something that sure you can share like video footage of it, but it's still just this kind of it's like an attempt at remembering something that's not supposed to be remembered.
So, are you familiar with happenings?
I think we've talked about happenings before.
Well, and this is like I believe we talked about them, but I always like they happened before we were born.
Yeah.
In the art world, so it's like they weren't really a thing by the time we were around, but like what they were trying to make people understand is this very thing that we're discussing, which is why I think it's like it's almost like we need to start like doing camera free happenings again to like get people to understand that thing, or else they will never truly understand it. Because part of it is like just the idea of doing something for like 4 hours and not having any cameras. It sounds crazy in 2025, but like that's the exact type of thing that would need to actually like you would even to the point you would actually full on need to lock people's phones up. They would not be able to be trusted to keep their phones on their person in the same way that when people go to comedy shows, they have to fucking, some of them use that lock bag so you can't get it out during the show. And it's like, if that's what it takes to get people to understand, to enjoy the moment, that's kind of the links we almost need to go to actually break people out of the notion of like, whether it's capturing the moment for the sake of future nostalgia or trying to capitalize on the moment for the sake of some future opportunity. And that's where there's all kinds of reasons that people aren't living in the moment. But I think for a society that is framing itself as Christian, even though I don't think it's Christian in the actual like good intention. If there was a good intention for Christianity, America is not even trying to be that. So that's where in addition, when they're doing things, they're never doing them for good reason. And that's where then I look at the media, and some of the media has purpose, but most of it doesn't. And then you look around, and then most things don't have purpose. And then it's like, if you ask the purpose, it's either going to be some haughty, world saving lie, or they're just going to come straight out and be like, we're trying to make money. And so this is where I'm like, I don't know if people in America open restaurants anymore because they want to make people good food. It's like, oh, I think I can have like low overhead on this one ingredient so I can open this type of restaurant, or like, oh, I have a hookup on this other ingredient and I can make more profit because this one ingredient I know the portobello farmer or whatever. And so
They specialize
I don't
in
know.
deep fried bloomin' onions.
But I'm yeah, or they just serve a bunch of fucking frozen food and they have a 17-page menu where I'm like, once I once Gordon Ramsay called that shit out, and like, if it's not the only restaurants I really trust to have those deep menus are either Mexican or Chinese, because so much of the shit is just variation.
Yeah, that's
that
just
it's
all
like,
modular, anyways.
right. And then that's where I'm like, okay, if they got 6 or 7 pages, okay, whatever. But like,
Indian cuisine's like that too. It's pretty modular.
a restaurant that serves burgers and pizza and tacos and fucking fish sticks and chicken. Like, now I'm so wary of that type of shit, but also the notion of like, that thing shouldn't exist. I shouldn't have to like think about that when I'm going to a restaurant, in terms of, if I'm going to a place to eat, I shouldn't be concerned whether the person who's serving me is trying to exploit me with cheap products and cheap service and overcharge me for some shit that I would have been better off just getting the fucking ingredients myself and making, so I didn't have to waste the hassle and time of like eating some shit that nobody should have been eating. And like, the fact that we all have to navigate those things constantly, but not just with food, it's with literally everything. That's where I'm looking at information getting at that point when they put news, quote unquote, behind a paywall, and then made it so that information that was good was valuable, or they were trying to monetize it in a way that they should not have, because they're already fucking putting ads on it in the first place. So it's like, if you're putting ads on something and that's not enough, then you're not doing something right. So if you're putting ads on something and then you're going to charge me to access on top of that, and then it's like, I don't know if the information's good, because their bias is so built into it that I'm like, I'm basically at that point just paying for their bias and I'm not paying for news. And so watching this play out with all of the different,
You think we'd get a copyright strike if we read like the script for some kind of product placement?
probably, probably, like, it's like, yeah, yeah,
Of course,
I
it's
do.
America.
I do. And they'd be like, you know what? I know you're not monetized, but if you ever get monetized, we want all of it because you mentioned our product for fucking 10 seconds in a joke. And then we would have to take it to the Supreme Court and be like, Your Honor, we were clearly joking. Like, this is clearly fucking protected by the First Amendment or whatever. And they're like,
Sorry, you read the script verbatim.
they're like, yeah, you should have been not talking to dumbass Americans because they don't get it. So sorry, it doesn't count as a joke. They think you were serious.
Oh. Oh. Yeah, that's the wackadoodle world we're in now. I don't think I've seen a video on YouTube that didn't have some kind of product placement in over 3 years. And I can't really recall anything past that because there isn't really anything memorable on YouTube.
Yeah, it's really bad.
It's a really strange place, but it's not like it's any different anywhere else. It's like even less memorable on like Instagram or Lord Edgelord's website, which that place generates content like that's the industrialization of content output right there. All social media is really, but like, and there's and the inordinate amount of bots that are also churning out just noise.
Oh yeah, and a lot of that on YouTube is happening there where it's the shorts and they just straight up steal content from TikTok and repost it with like some caption.
They'll put a frame around it with some kind of title.
And it's so, that between all of the website or all of the social media and all of the trash media, I'll call it junk media websites, there used to be this quality. Not even okay. YouTube was never high quality, but it was at least not filled with ad placement in the fucking videos. So it was like if you were watching a video about Doctor Doom's 7 best appearances where he was like not fighting and only giving speeches, you'd be guaranteed that like you could watch it from beginning to end and like not have to worry about skipping through the fucking commercial.
Something that niche shouldn't have any commercials.
Bro, exactly. But now anything really specific that looks that specific is almost explicitly just a commercial that's built around that topic, or anything that's like looking as if it's trying to grab your attention is heavily pushed by the algorithm, like fucking what's his name? Weather Max. Fucking because then
Max Velocity.
His like
that's right.
No, I was calling him the wrong name on purpose.
Yeah, that's because I kept thinking his name was Weather Max for like.
I know that's
took me months.
Better, but it's like, dude, this is the problem with Weather Max. All these fucking idiots that watch Weather Max and like join the Weather Max club and buy fucking hats and shit. They're the same people that go out and are like, oh, he's better than the NOIA. That's why we need to defund the NOIA. I get my information from Weather Max. And they don't understand where he gets his information from.
Yeah.
So it's like
he's getting his from NOIA.
Of course. Of course. But these fucking idiots don't get that. And they think that this like 20-year-old or 22-year-old, whatever.
I'm convinced he's like in his mid to late 30s and he's just doesn't go outside. He's like never been kissed by sunlight.
No, dude, he's like 23, maybe not even 23. Like you can tell by the fact that he cannot grow a beard to save his life, and he's got like pimples constantly. It's so like
maybe he's like 16 or 17.
No, he's in college because he was talking about finals like one of the times where he's like,
okay,
again, he's definitely an undergrad. He's not a grad student, and he's not a meteorologist. He's in school for meteorology, and these people think that this guy is more knowledgeable about weather than the actual people who are training him. And then on top of that, he blows shit out of proportion and gets shit wrong in his projections because he like will project the worst possible path for the storms a lot of times, or like if a storm hasn't developed, he's like, a storm might develop and it might be the an F5 tornado, and it's like then it doesn't happen, and he like doesn't lose any followers, he gains thousands of followers every time that happens. So it's like I've watched him grow. He went from like 500,000 to a million subscribers in maybe 2 months.
Oh wow.
Maybe 3 months. I want to say it's 2 months at the most. Because the only reason I know is because he fucking had hats. He's like, well, we would make these 500,000 subscriber hats to commemorate hitting the milestone, and then he made 1 million, and that's where I'm like, the way YouTube pushes him, it's like they push him more than the actual storm chasers, because then there's like Brandon Kopic and Reed Timmer, like at the least, and if he's live, they're probably actually chasing the storm. So it's like, I I was talking about the storm chasers like a while back, but it's weird to watch YouTube go through these cycles of what they push. And then it's like, it doesn't push Reed Timmer. Even I think, I don't, I might be subscribed to both of them, but if something's happening, it'll push Max up an hour before Reed shows up. And then I'll realize like, no, Reed's been live this whole time, or Brandon's been live this whole time. So I don't like, it doesn't make sense as to why they would show the one that is derivative of the other when I'm subscribed to both. Like, if it'd be one thing if I wasn't subscribed to the actual Storm Chasers too, but if the Storm Chasers are live and the Storm Watchers are live, I should. I mean, I guess the algorithm doesn't know what is happening, but that's part of why it's weird that it's pushing the Storm Watchers more frequently. And that's where I'm like, it goes through these, I don't know if they're learning fits or if it's like somebody's adjusting the algorithm or what, but I see these periods of like what it tries to push and then what it doesn't push. And that's where, like, it's part of it is also he uses the same thumbnail design every single time. And that's where I see YouTube Studio, it's like it encourages people to change their thumbnail designs. I don't understand why it's telling me as a producer on the back end that I should be changing my thumbnail design. But when I see the fucking thumbnails that it's recommending all the time, it's the exact same fucking design. So it's like, I could only imagine what it's like trying to be a full-time content producer and trying to chase that changing algorithm, because it rewards people and rewards people, and then you see it take away their rewards, and like then they try to do everything to get that reward back. And so it's like, I wonder how long this weather watching phase is going to work, because part of it is like, once people realize that he's actually using radar that they can get access to. I think it might take like a year. Then it's gonna look like he's trying to like scam them and scam their attention. And so there's gonna like between him and Ryan Hall, there's gonna be a backlash once people the issue is they're not like they don't really hide it, but they don't really
They neither
they
discourage nor encourage questions.
right, but they also have these things about their setups to make it seem like they are creating these tools when the tools already existed. Or like if you want to set up a weather alert, so like it lets you know when a tornado watch happens or some, those tools are already out there. And so the people watching them watch these tools go down, it's only a matter of time before enough of those people watching figure it out and put it together, which I think that's where it's like I'm trying to I know there's been trends like this before, but it's like
I wonder how this is following some kind of consumer like index, because I remember during pandemic there was this really strange like big push for everyone to get into the outdoors, go into the outdoors and you can avoid everyone, get in touch with nature. And I remember seeing a lot more marketing of just not just the activities, but all the stuff that you need to do the activities. Because you can't just go out and do stuff anymore. You got to have like equipment. And it was interesting because a lot of the I remember a lot of the marketing seemed to be like pushing this solitary experience because you're supposed to avoid people during pandemic because we were being safe and all that good stuff. That made sense. There's this push to, if you can't be around people, go do something, go outside, go touch grass. But I'm not sure how like is there some national campaign to get everyone to buy one of those weather stations? Did I miss out on that? Is there like a discount for those things that look like airplanes, the weather vanes? Seriously, if there's like a national like buyout thing where we can all get like a weather vane system and feed in information into the government and it's subsidized and stuff, I want in. Like I'll install one of those things. I'm serious. Like some of those things are nice. That some weather stations are like hundreds of dollars because they have like lightning detectors that or can detect significant light changes up to like 10 miles away. Like really faint changes in light conditions. And then all that stuff is fed into, an active database. And then if everyone had one of these things, then we would have really accurate weather, like all over the country. I bet that would cost very, considerably less than funding entire. Well, let's see. How many houses are there? So there's like 150 million. So what's that? Oh man, that's a lot. That's like 1.5 billion dollars worth of weather systems. Could do it. It'd be cool.
well, into that
Make it a civilian initiative. Everyone gets a weather monitoring station when they get their house or their apartment, and then they get to like contribute to like local, regional, national weather database, and they get a discount on their internet or something like that for participating. That would be a useful. That'd be a useful program. And then companies like Honeywell or whatever, Westinghouse could make money on their weather stations. Everybody wins is capitalism, right? That's how that works. We just replaced Noah. They should cut us a check for solving their problem. Yeah, it'll be interesting. There's like a apparently 100% tariff on all goods coming into going into Canada from the United States. I mean, part of me like hopes that that has some kind of meaningful impact, but there's also part of me that's like cynical and says, "Man, I hope they like canned vegetables."
In Canada?
Yeah,
I mean,
they buy a lot of agricultural goods from us.
that's true, but any other country that we're not doing business with can then just do business with Canada
That's
or
true.
who we're trying to fuck over. So that's where it's like, yeah, we may fuck our own farmers, but then that opens up the avenue for Chilean farmers or Argentinian farmers to go fill that. So it's like, yeah, I don't see this negatively affecting anybody but Americans, and that's
Well, I think
why.
that's the that's the we know that's going to happen.
Well, and that's what I mean. I don't see it lasting longer than maybe 6 months because it's like they're already talking about delaying some of the tariffs because they're facing pushback.
Oh yeah, I think I also read that there's some like have been some exceptions that have been signed into effect already to mitigate some of
Yep.
the backlash.
Hmm. Well, and it's like what's funny is the way that they've equated DEI with black people and then made it about all the DEI government jobs. Those jobs don't really exist. And so the people that they're going after are imaginary. And so only people that they're going to really affect in terms of working and capital are the exact people that voted for them. So this is literally like there's this time bomb of his policies intersecting with his voters where once they've disenfranchised all of their last voters, then the voters are going to be like, this is not the policy we voted for. And so they're going to turn on him.
I
And this
think
is
it's. I
where,
think it. I agree completely, but I think it's more than just like a policy type bomb. I think it's also a things that he's said in public being taken to task for time bomb. Like
oh, absolutely. No, no,
just saying
absolutely. I'm
things
not.
that he wouldn't do. Like
Exactly.
like
Exactly.
it's all
And
it's gonna explode.
main thing being, they're going to see like black people aren't going to just be slaves all of a sudden. They're not going to be poor and on the streets. It's not going to be a bunch of like homeless black people all of a sudden. That's what they want. That's what they want. And like, they want all the Mexicans to be out on the streets homeless and then get deported. That shit is not going to happen. They don't have the fucking resources to keep up with that shit, let alone like if they actually had the legal capacity to just start deporting people the way that they said that they were going to, it was like it was never going to go down the way that they say, which is also where I'm like, these news outlets reporting on what people threaten in power. It's one thing to report it and then discuss why it's bad, but they just report it and keep moving and they don't like quote unquote take sides. Like when Elon fucking Zig Heiled, like they just reported that he made a gesture and that he said his heart goes out, but they didn't come out and say, yes, it was a Nazi salute. Like, I think the only news outlets that did that were non-American. And the all it's funny to see all of this shit that's happening abroad with like Tesla boycotts and um all of this shit that people are doing to Tesla factories abroad, not really making it to American news, and they're trying to hide it to protect the stock price. And it's like, it's not working. The stock price is starting to drop.
Well, good. I want it to be for like, reasons like the vehicles just aren't safe or they're not reliable or there's no like, refurbishing or repair mechanism in place that actually works, or there's not enough network to charge the things, or they I would like it to be a bunch of legitimate reasons other than a doofus making a really poor decision on national television. But take what we can get.
And people have started to destroy the chargers in America.
Oh, so. Yeah.
That shit is hilarious because they're not going to be able to replace them fast enough. No. So,
but I wonder how many of those are actual vandalism and how many of them are just some idiot just driving off with the thing still attached.
Well, what's funny about that is like the right wingers used to vandalize them years ago, like 3 or 4 years ago. It was right wingers.
Yeah, they'd back their truck
parking
into
in those
it.
Exactly, and they would fuck them up. But now those are the same people who were like supposedly on his side, but they're not also buying the Teslas. So he's like,
yeah, well, that's because they're still paying their $120,000 full size truck.
Right, of course. But he's courting people who are not buying his cars.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's like the people, the last line of Tesla owners was mostly a lot of left wingers who thought they were helping the environment, who didn't really do the research into like the supply chain of Tesla. And then you had libertarians who were recently swayed and got stuck in Cybertruck leases. So it's like there's not a lot of new Teslas on the road. And further, there was a point when there was a lot of Teslas on the road, and it's like I'm seeing fewer and fewer Teslas just in traffic in general. It's like they're still there, but at I want to say 2016, 2017, it was like you couldn't go on the road without seeing a Tesla. And so we're not in those days anymore. It's like I think people, I don't know if they're parking them or if they're just driving them at night or what, but they're definitely,
they're waiting for parts. They're broken and they're sitting in a lot someplace and they're at the dealership and they're waiting for parts to get in.
That too.
They have a bad battery controller. They have a bad power module. They have a bad inverter. They've got some bad module and there isn't a replacement for it.
I wonder how many models are like that. Yeah.
I bet they're all like that. They haven't iterated enough to have worked out the kinks in all of their shit to the point that they can be fine, trimming at the fringes for a 0.001% increase in efficiency. They're not there yet. They're still at the let's get people to buy ours. They only sold like 8 million cars in the United States, globally. Like those aren't big numbers. they haven't iterated enough. Like every and every solely electric car manufacturer is going bankrupt. Rivian is, you know, Rivian's fucked. That Spiker company, they screwed up too. Like they're all done. Like it doesn't work because they can't get parts.
I mean, the hybrid's just gonna be the superior model for a long time.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's just the truth of the situation.
Everyone's going to be is still playing catch up to Toyota and then Honda and whoever is working with Toyota or Honda. And really, it's whoever's working with Toyota. Man, the future.
Like you're saying, a lot of it is about fixing parts. And if the infrastructure's not there, it's like, yeah, that's a big hurdle to keeping people on the road. Um,
Like I can't imagine that in 30 years anyone's going to be able to find parts for their 2025 Tesla any vehicle. I just don't believe that's the case. I don't think that they're going to have that kind of parts availability. It's not like the vehicles that were made in the 90s where you can still get parts for them.
that's true, but I feel like by that time people will have access to like larger 3D printers because
Yeah, and way cooler stuff will exist too, and hopefully they'll have resolved mass transit.
well, but like I mean, in terms of like a neighborhood
Oh yeah,
3D printer that's like, people could go to that and get their car printed out instead of like a car dealership.
Yeah,
Like I feel
yeah.
like in 25 years, that's because then, yeah, we could print out a fucking piece for any goddamn car. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think that's another issue. There's going to be a material revolution. Like the things that
Yeah.
exist now
Oh,
in the
yeah, for
manufacturing
sure.
processes we have now probably won't exist in the way that we know them today.
Well, and I only say that because I know Mercedes was working on 3D printing like years ago.
Yeah.
And so who knows? Maybe they can 3D print a whole car at once right now. And they're just not like releasing it.
I watched a video last night of a 3D printer build an impeller for a boat, and it was just running around in a circle for a while, but they kept getting tighter and tighter until he realized that it developed this kind of conical shape, and then it went back and loop by loop built up these impeller blades at the correct angle already, and then they just took the thing off and polished it, and custom blade angle, custom like whatever. There's a ratio that there was a name for. I don't know enough about impellers to really talk about that stuff, but it was impressive because they rapid typed a propeller or an impeller for a boat, like not just a small one, but like a big one, and that's cool stuff. So I know that it's not impossible, just a matter of time. I actually fully expect NASA to be doing stuff like that. Like, oh, we need to repair a part on our spaceship.
Oh yeah, that's definitely some shit they're working on for sure.
Like, they're gonna need to be able to print out like replacement components because they're not gonna be able to take an entire industrial manufacturing chain with them. They're gonna have a, an injection shaping thingy thing. And the future is wild. We're gonna have so many cool things at some point. It's just a matter of, are we gonna be alive by the time that stuff is available? Not just alive, but young enough to still use those things.